Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Greater Memphis Chambers uh, webinar of Breaking Barriers to Black Business. Excuse me, Breaking Barriers to Black Business. We're so happy to each of you have chosen to participate with us this hour. In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started because it's got a packed conversation to be had. So my name is Eric Stevenson. I'm the Chamber's Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm so happy to serve in this capacity. So happy to be having this webinar in honor of Black Business Month. Black Business Month, as we know, was started back in 2004 by two Black entrepreneurs, Mr. Frederick Jordan and John Templeton, and they wanted to highlight Black businesses and the accomplishment and the achievements. Excuse me. Specifically, we wanted to do this at the Chamber because Memphis has a rich history of Black businesses that have changed the nation. And so we want to be able to highlight those businesses such as, and we have a rich history such as, Dr. Joseph Walker and Robert Church, who were pioneers in the business world. But then we also have our panelists today who have paved the way for Black business to thrive in this market. And so we just want to make sure that we have the opportunity to give some practical steps of how you can actionably change the market for the better. So without further ado, I will introduce our moderator. Larry Robinson is the founder and CEO of Kazukian Media. Kazukian Media has been in production for several decades. Larry, please step in and let me know how many years it was. I can't remember.
Nine
9 years. Okay, not quite. Okay, not quite a decade, but 9 years. But Larry is a Memphian now, Memphian by choice, and he's located here in the heart of Memphis, and his production company is on the Journey 6, which I will shamelessly promote as one of the best things to watch on any form of media, as well as he is the co-chair of our small business think tank. And so we're absolutely honored to have Larry be the moderator, very seasoned business owner. And thank you. And I'll turn it over to you, Larry.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Larry Robinson, CEO of Kazukian, as Eric so eloquently noted. We specialize in creating immersive digital experiences through top quality audiovisual content and events. Today, as part of the Black Business Month, we're here to discuss breaking barriers to Black businesses. Our esteemed panelists will share practical advice on overcoming challenges such as access to capital, networks, and business resources. And by the way, Kazukian is a 100% owned Black business. So this conversation is very, very important to me. So without further ado, we start with our first panelist is Miss Joselle Luster Booker. Miss Booker is a president and CEO of MMBC Continuum and MMC TADP. Now, I don't know what that means, but I'm sure she will tell us. She has a long career with Memphis Light Gas and Water Division, and where she designed and managed an award-winning supplier diversity program. Next, we have Brother Joe Claiborne, is a senior manager of business diversity and development at Memphis International Airport. His role involves incorporating DEI principles into public infrastructure and projects. Next, we have Brother Ernest Strickland, President and CEO of the Black Business Association of Memphis. He specializes in economic and workforce development. He is an architect of the Upskill 901 program aimed at upskilling 10,000 individuals over a 3-year period. And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Venetia Mitchell, serves as the executive director of the Women's Business Center South. She has dedicated her life to work in education, economic development, and particularly focused on empowering young people, minorities, and women. Now, we have a few questions for each of you. Joe, can you come on? And Joselle, would you come on as well? How y'all doing today? And Venetia, would you come on as well? And Ernest, where you at? Where y'all at, folks? We need you on. We need your screen. We need to see y'all smiling faces out there. All right, all right. So listen. First, I want to ask each of you. Could each of you briefly describe what diversity, equity, inclusion means to you and your organization? And we'll start with Joselle.
Glad to be here today, and I want to thank the Chamber for putting on this program today. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, to me, first, when you think about, when I think about the work that we do, the space that we're in, so diversity for us is not only the ethnic diversity of the individual business owners, but it's also businesses across industries, businesses that are at various points on the business life cycle continuum. Is that total diversity of businesses. Equity, I like to think that we are in the business of helping to create equity. And that's equity from the standpoint of a business's readiness to engage in different markets, to be able to take advantage of various opportunities. So equity is everything from having the capital, having the business infrastructure, having the back office support, having the expertise, having all the licenses that they need. And then inclusion is when those businesses are given an opportunity to compete and participate, and they get to choose where they want to compete and on what stages and levels.
Fantastic. Joe?
Good afternoon to you all again, and thank you so much for this opportunity. And to just kind of piggyback on exactly what Joselle said, again, yes, diversity and inclusion. Oftentimes, as soon as we hear of that, we think about small minority women-owned businesses, and those businesses who in some point or another may have felt some type of disenfranchisement, and because of it, there's a necessity for opportunities to be in the marketplace. So again, at the Memphis airport, and as all of our intent is to try to make sure that we do that one thing called inclusion, try to make sure that all those companies that are looking to do business, not just with our marketplace, but just for those who are looking to do business throughout the city of Memphis, that we help and try to provide those avenues of assistance. So again, it's all about inclusion. It's all about opportunities and what we can do to try to help meet that and mitigate any concerns that may happen along the way to keep that from happening. So our goal always is to make sure that we're doing it, we're talking about it, we're actually living it, and to be as inclusive as possible.
All right. Venetia?
Hi, thank you all for having me today. I'm glad to be here. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are essentially why Women's Business Center is necessary and exists. We know that historically and present day, there are disparities in the way that women are able to access resources to grow a small business. And so the Women's Business Center is really designed to help to mitigate some of that and clear some of those hurdles, because there's a diversity in the women that we serve, not just gender, but also in race. We serve all women, but we have programming specifically for women of color. There is the goal to make sure there is equitable opportunity, which might not always mean the same, right? Sometimes we have to do way more for some people that have more hurdles to overcome. And then the inclusivity part is really making sure that women have a real seat at the table, that they have their voices heard, not just being present, but they're able to engage and effect change and see the types of growth in their businesses that other businesses historically have been able to achieve. So I think DEI is really why we're here. So glad to be a part of this conversation.
Well, first, let me put some respect on your name, Dr. Mitchell. All right, Ernest.
Yeah, thanks, Larry and Eric and everyone for allowing me to be a part of the conversation and the panel. It's like a homecoming for me, participating in the chamber event, and so I'm happy to be here. Um, to your question, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here at the Black Business Association, of course, we're biased in that we see things through the lens of how can we help Black folks in this community? How can we build wealth in the Black community? That's our mantra, and that's what we're promoting actively. When we look at diversity, we look at it, as Joseph said, not just in ethnicity, but also in experiences, in thinking, and points of view, all of which help the aggregate uh, eliminate blind spots and helps with the competitiveness because you have those varying experiences, those varying thoughts and points of view. When we look at equity, evening of the playing field, corrective action is another way of looking at it. And with inclusion, active participation, not passive, but active participation. It's like the medicine that we need in order for us to heal and be healthy. And as you all know, sometimes we don't like taking our medicine, but it's good for us.
Right, right. All right. Now, next question is, what are some of the common barriers that Black businesses face in your respective sectors, and what are some of the solutions that they could utilize to overcome them? Joe, I'm gonna start with you.
Thank you. Oftentimes, some of the barriers, especially in today's climate now, we began to look at the basic things as bonding, insurance, but also I like to throw in capacity. Oftentimes, there are companies who have the wherewithal to get the job done as far as the actual work to be completed, but may not have the capacity. And because they don't have the capacity where it comes to employees, may not have the capacity where it comes to the financial obligations of being able to carry it out, then one of the things that we try to make sure we do is what can we do to help with that process? Well, one of the easiest process internally for us is that when we look at different projects that are going to be solicited, how can we break that project down? How can we make it as small as possible so that we can have more people to have opportunity to get to the table? So we realize one of the greatest obstacles that oftentimes come along is those businesses not always having the capacity to do the work. So we look at what that may be. With that, if it's in the area of bonding, who can we bring aboard and how can we help those companies to grow their business and become scalable to the point that their capacity then meets the project limits? Or if it's necessary, can that project, again, like I said, be broken into smaller pieces so that those opportunities will still be available for our small minority and women-owned businesses. And because our intent is to do more business in the local market, I mean, quite naturally, we want to try to keep as many of those dollars here in our community as possible. And because we're trying to keep those dollars in the local market, we need to see how that process works when it comes to financing and whether or not the capitalization process is there. So those are the things that we look for, realizing that those obstacles are oftentimes some of the biggest barriers that we have in place. So what can we do to mitigate that is my intent.
Fantastic. Dr. Mitchell, barriers for Black women-owned businesses and solutions that you would see to overcome them.
Absolutely. So when it comes to economic mobility, I think the same hurdles that sort of persist for Black people, period, are magnified when it comes to Black entrepreneurs. And then you sort of compound it when you add being female in many places, like our access and ability to navigate institutions, like banking institutions, often not necessarily feeling welcome in those places, or even comfortable, even when welcome, just not feeling comfortable like you have choice, you have agency And so that is a big area that we try to clear the gap for. Memphis, there's, in many minority cities, Black areas have more poverty. And so a lot of times entrepreneurialism is a solution. And you look at entrepreneurialism as a way to supplement your household income. So we find many of the women, the Black women that come to our center, might be doing so not necessarily because they have a passion or a dream. They might have a passion or a dream, but many times it's because they need to make some additional money to be able to take care of their family's needs. And so that means you might not come to the table with the same skill set. You know, perhaps you did not go to school to be an entrepreneur. You are first generation, so you didn't have conversations at the dinner table about how to manage a business. And you might not have a network that makes business success an option, right? Maybe you don't know an accountant, you don't know an attorney. So the center is a place that can serve as your good old boy network, a place where you can come and have people in your network that have those expert skills that can really be change agents in the life of a small business. And you can meet those bankers, and you might be a solopreneur. I saw a stat recently that 97% of Black women-owned businesses are one-person shops. 97%. So that's most of them, right? So that means the woman is doing absolutely every function in that business. So we really strive to help women look at how they can outsource things. Think about the value of your time. So if your time is better spent on securing a client, then perhaps you don't need to be running your social media. You know, that's something that we need to help you look at outsourcing from a very practical sense, and then really exploring how you can scale your small business. And a lot of this is because there's been exclusion of, you know, Black minority women in this particular ecosystem. So we really want to help fill the gap, serve as part of their network to experts and expertise so that they have a more equitable shot at being successful.
All right. Ernest, barriers and solutions.
Yeah, I think one barrier that we overlook is the having to get it right the first time. We don't have the luxury of um, trying, revising, improving. We have to get it right the first time. Otherwise, we're out of business. And that, part of it is because, typically we don't have a rich uncle to go to for seed capital. Um, Accessing capital can be a challenge. Uh, Systematic, racism that we've seen that has created, you know, unfairness in banking. Those systems continue to pay dividends, to this day. And when you're at a disadvantage, um, it's hard to get back to zero in order to move forward. And so, accessing capital is definitely, one of the barriers. Starting a business undercapitalized, not having any room for error, is, a barrier that we're faced with. I think a solution that we often ignore is we have to wrap our arms around Black businesses in particular and force appreciation in those businesses. We have to pick winners. We have to change our spending habits to the point where we're going to ensure that this company has enough business, enough opportunity where they can start, they can innovate, they can make changes, and we keep them alive long enough for them to be strong. FedEx did not start off in 1973 as the FedEx they are today, but they had the ability to grow, to revise, to test, to fail, and still maintain business. And oftentimes we're not afforded that same opportunity. The other barrier that I see is, we're first generation entrepreneurs, and there's a learning curve associated with being first generation. there's a level of business acumen that you may not have when you venture down this road of being an entrepreneur. And so education, of course, but we need to create learn earn models where companies can be educated but also be compensated in the process. We're rolling out a new program called BBA Business Booster, where we're going to help Black restaurants be able to receive technical training, coaching, but also provide them with a grant on the front end, so that that's our way of creating this learn earn type of model.
Now, Joselle, I saved you for last on this one intentionally because you've seen both sides. You've seen it
I
from a
see.
vendor and you've seen it from the agency side. So, I mean, literally, what are some of those barriers, those tough barriers that you've seen and you've come in contact with, but also what's some of those high level innovative solutions that I'm
Yeah.
sure MMBC is providing?
Well, when I heard that question, I thought, oh my, that is a loaded question. And the way everybody answered it is correct, because when you think about, and you use the word common, so I'm thinking about whether you have businesses that are in the business to business space. So that's these companies that want to do business and they exist to do business with other companies or corporations. And then Ernest mentioned restaurants. Then you have the B2C, the businesses that exist to do business with, consumers. And then Vanisha mentioned the solopreneurs. So then you have these direct serve, direct sale kinds of businesses. And each business in each of these categories, a business could be at a different stage in the business life cycle continuum. And regardless of where they are, startup, mature business, growing business, they could be great businesses, profitable in their respective space and where they are on that continuum. But to the point that was mentioned, if they're undercapitalized, don't understand their finances, don't know their actual cost, and that's not a negative. So any business owner that's listening, that's not a negative. That's common, because everyone starts a business. I think Joe mentioned it. You start a business based on the craft and where you are. And just like Fred Smith was one person that started a business, Pitt Hyde was one person that started a business. Everybody in business in Memphis are familiar with those two names. They started as a solopreneur, Venetia, one person, and the business grew. So if you don't have the experience, and no one does, to know how to staff out and how to develop the infrastructure from accounting to legal to marketing to sales to business development to operations, you're going to need to find an agency or an organization based on what you need. If you're a woman-owned business and you want the support and recognize what the Women's Business Center South does, that's going to be your new best friend. If you're a minority business and you need and want the services offered by the Black Business Association and what they're offering, that's going to be your go-to. If you're interested in construction and the great work that Joe and his peers and team at the airport does with helping DBEs and businesses understand what they have to do, the first thing business owners have to do is to determine what they don't know. And over the years, I've heard so many business owners say, I just didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And then be open to agencies and organizations and individuals whose business it is to help these businesses grow. So it could be anything from access to capital, understanding finance, understanding your costs. And how do you get past gatekeepers? Once you identify an institution or an organization that you think you want to do business with, how do you identify the person that you need to speak to? And how do you get past those people? Unfortunately, today, there are still gatekeepers. that are there, maybe not to open the door to let you in, but they'll tell you where you need to go. You got to go to this portal. You got to register here. You have to do that, but really understand that institution. Know that you can't do it by yourself. And networks, Venetia mentioned that. There's so many different networks that small businesses and particularly Black businesses not only don't have access to, they might not even know that they exist. And that could be everything from banking to, just peer groups, knowing people that are in the same industry with you. How do you learn best practices? How do you know what's going on? And then specific tools that are specific to your particular business or industry. And I will say this, I think another common barrier for Black businesses is the perception that people have when you say Black business. Not all Black businesses are small. Not all Black businesses are undercapitalized. Not all of them don't have the experience. We have, and I know Ernest has seen them. I know Venetia has seen them. I know Joe has done a lot of business with them. And we got one moderating us. We got Kazukian. We have a lot of Black businesses that are capable, they are qualified, and they are ready right now. But until we're able to change the mindset and change the narrative around Black businesses and make it about the qualifications, capabilities, and experience of a business who, oh, by the way, happen to be owned by somebody that is Black or a female. That's the first barrier that we have to get over, especially in a community that is majority African American. And historical thought about Black businesses and perceiving them as being small or needing to be trained. Because we probably have a lot of overtrained businesses here that just need someone to open the door and give them an opportunity to compete just like they do any other business.
Amen. Amen. Shoot, you're gonna make me shout over here. But listen, we got an elephant in the room, and we're not gonna avoid it on this virtual event and meeting. We got a Supreme Court that recently made a ruling on diversity, and we got an 8A program that has been suspended. So I gotta ask each of you, what is the future of DEI in your respective fields? And I'm gonna start right back with you, Giselle.
DEI. Unfortunately, DEI is viewed as a caption. And you asked that question when we first started. What does DEI mean to each one of us in our organizations?
Right.
Everybody participating on this webinar, they have their own view and definition of what DEI means. It's a caption. It can mean anything. It can mean everything from HR structures and how organizations have affinity groups and, It can mean a whole lot of things. I think the future of DEI is here to stay. Now, we may not call it DEI. You can call it whatever you want. But I think the biggest problem, whether it's here to stay or whether it goes away, is we have to stop terming this work that we do as a program. Programs can be wiped out of budgets, that you can strike a program as a line item in a budget and it is gone. What we have to do is we have to institutionalize the behaviors and what we are trying to accomplish by integrating those throughout our business processes. And it makes it very difficult to unravel. So first thing we do is we stop calling them programs. If it's the culture of our organization, of an organization that's going to be inclusive, you're looking for the best contractors, the best suppliers, the best whoever's in the market, and you put together institutionalized processes of how you do that to ensure that you are inclusive, because really DEI is nothing but sourcing and making sure you adequately source. So, I mean, I think that there are ways for us to continue the work that we do, whether you call it DEI or not. But I don't see the threat of what the Supreme Court is doing or what anyone is doing with these programs that will stop or change what we do here at MMBC. That won't change, because what we do is we support businesses and help businesses to be competitive and to be strong, structured businesses. And when they get in the marketplace, I've never seen a bid solicitation or specification for a project that start off with saying you got to be Black. It starts off with saying what the state licenses you have to have, what qualifications you have to have, what your bonding capability has to be. And so as long as we continue to grow and help develop strong businesses, we'll be able to compete along with some of these other things that we've talked about. Now, it's not going to be easy. The world is not just going to open up and everybody is going to accept us. But I don't see the direction that it appears that the court is going into to be something that I think that we should just, shut our doors and go home. I think it's going to cause us to look at things differently. And as organizations, we'll develop different strategies, but all will continue to be well.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ernest.
So when affirmative action programs were passed, they were to remove the badges of slavery. I think today's version of that is so ambiguous that when you say diversity, as Joselle said, everybody will give you a different answer. One company looks at diversity as veteran-owned businesses, disabled-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. And so there is a threat in that the playing field is not even. And I think that's what the Supreme Court ruling suggests, that we're living in a time and a date where the playing field is even. We can walk outside any of our doors and see that something is wrong with that theory. And so I do think it's going to continue, but in different, inside of a different construct. The saving grace to me is that America is browning, and there's no reversing that. And so the fact that our country is becoming more diverse, the genie is out of the bottle. And those that fear where the country is headed because of more and more people are looking differently. Some people like things as they are. Change is tough for some people. And so I think the saving grace is that America is, browning, becoming more diverse. Diversity and difference doesn't mean deficient. I look at diversity as a currency to make us stronger. It eliminates blind spots that we have. I have blind spots. Every day I'm operating and I think I know what I know. And then I talk to Venetia and I hear a different perspective. So now my approach is going to be stronger because of that new perspective that I didn't previously have. And so, a lot of the contracting, especially with government, I remind people that Jim Crow was public policy. And if public policy helped to create the wealth divide that we see today, public policy has a role to play in solving that gap. And so I'm going to keep, pushing, and I know, the folks on this Zoom is going to keep pushing for fairness, for inclusion, equity, because the playing field is not even. And if we have a more inclusive Memphis, that's the part that I think people miss. If we have a more inclusive Memphis, we can solve some of the challenges that we have. Equity is a education strategy. It's a health and wellness strategy. It's a law enforcement strategy. All the things that Memphians as a whole want to see. And so we need to understand that it's not a threat it's an opportunity for us to have a more robust community.
Fantastic. Dr. Mitchell?
So even just listening to the previous responses, I'm more optimistic than I think I felt prior, which my optimism usually is on the high end of the spectrum. But I think that to Joselle's point about it being a caption, I do think there may be some different language that gets wrapped around what DEI is. I do not foresee it going away. I think that, to some of the points that Ernest made, when you want the best of what is available, it looks like diversity. When you want the absolute best of what is available, it's not going to look like one thing, one person, one attribute, one characteristic. It's just not going to. And so that is an exciting outcome to me. I know there are a lot of institutions, think tanks working on theories around generations, and how these upcoming generations are going to look at and tackle some of the problems that we're facing now. And I think that these new approaches, because there's perhaps more inclusivity than there's ever been before, are really going to blow us away. I mean, I think about the fact that when you give someone agency to excel in the area that they're excellent in, you get so much of the amazing innovation that we've been able to experience up to this point, right? So I think that even if it seems like what's been unleashed is minimal, it's too big to push it back down. Like, even though the ruling, repealed that, I think that what was unleashed is too big to quench. I just believe that. And I think that there are too many people that are focused on this issue. I think that it is not something that will just go away. I know I had some conversations recently about it rippling through different industries, that deference being given to people of color or people that are perceived to be diverse in whatever way, whether it be ability, veteran status, etc. That now that distinction won't be made, so people may not have a seat at the table anymore. But I think it's gone too far to turn back. I mean, I know that I could be wrong, but I just believe that in my heart that we've gone too far to turn back. We just won't allow it. We know too much. You've let us get to this point. So we're gonna go all the way. And I think that it excites me living in a minority city, because I have these visions of people taking, just their rightful place, like knowing I am worthy of being here. I can take up space. I see so many people like me who are doing amazing things. And I know that entrepreneurs are leaders in that area. I think that collectively we have the ability to fund some things that will ensure efforts do not go away if it seems like those things are being threatened. So I don't see it going away. I agree, it's not a program. DEI is here to stay.
Can't unring that bell.
Can't do it.
Joe?
Not much more can be added to this other than to state this. Affirmative action programs have been under fire since their inception. And because they have been under fire since their inception, what it does for us today, even now in the face of all that is going on and all the challenges that is still yet before us, to keep in mind this, that there is still yet a necessity for all of us. And that is not only those who are in the room today, those who are watching, but it's a necessity for all of us to continue to keep an eye on the landscape. Continue to monitor where we are and where our growth is, to be ready to regroup, to be ready to remodel, and to be ready to continue to advance forward. Because when you already know that the lack of a better word, that there is an attack, then you position yourself to do just what needs to be done. And you position yourself to go forward. Here recently at the ACCA meeting that took place here in the city of Memphis, one of the speakers there, Colette Holt of Holt and Associates, a DBE company, stated that because of all these affirmative action programs under fire, prepare yourself for greater points of outreach. Get ready to do more. Get ready to be prepared to accept not necessarily the changes, but accept the necessity to be ready to forge ahead. So let's continue to do just that. So when I hear about that, I think about, okay, there may have to be new dynamics. There may have to be new paradigm shifts in how we do business so that we can continue to do what necessary to not just for the fact of keeping these programs alive, but keeping opportunities moving afloat.
Wow.
Larry, can I add something?
Sure.
Recently, matter of fact, recently we held our annual economic development forum. And at the forum, we had a seminar that was titled Dismantling Inequities, a deep dive into corporate DEI. Panelists were from International Paper, Smith & Nephew, Ford Motor Company, Vizient, and a company called Arch Key Solutions, which is a large electrical company. With the exception of Arch Key, the DEI programs that were presented and previewed all centered around human resources and talent management. And so when you think about DEI, that's where it starts. If you don't have an appreciation for the differences of the people across your organization, large global organizations like that, that have these different affinity groups where people can get together and feel appreciated and understood, and you create a culture of inclusiveness and appreciation of differences, you have to have that first.
Right.
Before you can start talking about purchasing. Because if the people within in the company don't appreciate the differences of each other and accept people for their different backgrounds, it's going to be very hard. I think Venetia said, one of you said, where everything is the same. You got to do that first. So if you don't have a culture within an organization where people are taught to respect people of different ethnicities, different backgrounds, then you're not going to have someone that's the gatekeeper is going to keep the lock double locked, because they won't really know how to communicate with someone that's different from them, that's approaching them to buy a good or a service or to contract with them, because they don't even have an appreciation for their coworker who works across the hall from them or who's working with them on a team. So I said that to say, while we're talking about DEI nationally with the question that you asked, what happens? Think about what happens if that happens, to where corporations are not allowed to even be able to have policies or practices in place where they can teach civility and respect and appreciation for the differences of the people that work in the organization. A lot has to happen before you can even get people that are going to be open to contracting or doing business with someone. So I just wanted to add that.
Wow. And I can say that the EDF Economic Development Fair was an amazing event. And if you haven't attended it, you missed something. And get ready for next year, because I'm sure it'll be even better next year. Joe, you were going to say something? Or was it Ernest?
No, yeah, I was about to add to Joseph's point that more so than being driven by a law change that requires you to do something, those that are honest and allies, they're gonna do the right thing regardless. They're not gonna have to be mandated to do the right thing. They're gonna understand that in order for their business to survive and be competitive, it takes diversity of thought. It takes diversity of ethnicity. It takes having people in the room that may not agree all the time, but it is for the benefit of that company, that corporation, and those customers will appreciate that uh, that the way that that company operates itself. And so, the real boss in this whole equation, the customers, and customers are going to gravitate towards the companies that they feel a kinship with. And so I think that is part of the saving grace because of our browning of America. You have to listen to your customers. And if you want to compete, diversity is the cheat code.
Fantastic, outstanding statement. So now listen, as you know, time flies when you're having fun. So we have about 5 minutes left before we want to get into some Q&A from the audience. So I'm gonna start and give you guys some specific questions, and if you could keep be succinct in your answers, I'd greatly appreciate it. So I'm gonna start with you, Ernest. Now you are in a historic Universal Life building and giving the existing network or ecosystems that exist. What actionable steps can the Black business community take to create a new renaissance?
Well, one, we need to understand that we all have a budget. My budget may be $100, Joselle's may be $100 million, but we all have a budget, right? And so we got to be intentional with how we spend our dollars, from a consumer standpoint, an institutional standpoint, a government standpoint. And so we can't dismiss the fact that we choose where we go and eat. We choose the real estate agent. We choose the CPA firm. We have to be deliberate and intentional about our individual budgets. That is one actionable way for us to support growing Black wealth and supporting Black businesses.
Dr. Venetia, you've dedicated your life to education and economic development, particularly focused on young women, young people, minorities, and women. What are some of the actionable steps that businesses can take to empower women?
So again, I have to echo that putting your money where your mouth is. I mean, in our Western world, nothing speaks louder. So really, really, really being intentional about spending with minority and women-owned companies. Also speaking about them in rooms that they cannot go into. So making recommendations where their foot has not trod, like really, really being advocates and champions of these businesses. When you know someone is great, don't hesitate to share that they're great. They're doing great work. They're doing great things. Consider them. It is really powerful how far some of these influential endorsements can go towards really, really making a difference in the life of these businesses. So definitely spending money as the opportunity presents itself. And then speaking about them where they can't speak for themselves. And then I think also what's important is grace, like grace to yourself and grace to them. I know our expectations are really high, and they should be. I'm not saying change the standard, but if someone does have a slip, don't crucify them. We want people to win. We want these businesses to win, and we know that it is hard. Okay, it's hard being a human. So it's really hard being a human trying to affect change in your community or grow a small business or do those things. So when you can, give some grace. Even if you give some correction with it, give some grace. Don't crucify them. But money, speaking highly of in rooms they can't get into and extending some grace.
Fantastic. Joselle, now you were one of the principal architects of an award-winning supplier diversity program. Could you share a couple best practices for Black businesses?
Yes. So one of the things that we did at MLGW, and I'm sure, hope they're still doing it today, is that business owners were encouraged and invited to come in and to present their business to the decision makers. So the tip that I would give you is to prepare your presentation. You're the best advocate for your business. Make it a quick presentation so that when you get an opportunity to come in and present to a team of people within corporations, if you're in that B2B space, have your presentation, make it succinct, get somebody to help you, make sure that it's professional, because it's going to be behind you when you leave. It'll be there when you leave. And just polish up on your pitches and be open, because that's one of the things that we looked for. We looked for the business owner that came in, that could pitch their business, knew their information about their company, and then the follow-up was automatic.
Awesome. 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 Joe, batting cleanup on this one. What you got for helping companies to level up and put their best foot forward as it relates to what you guys need at Memphis International Airport and working in that public infrastructure?
Yeah, and thank you for that. Because we are a public and quasi-government infrastructure, obviously we are bound by different types of rules, where you see oftentimes, you talked here already about the finance and those companies who have to structure and market theirs in a different manner. Because we are a recipient of federal funds, we have these programs, and these programs are designed to help to foster the opportunities for minority women-owned businesses to grow. And we do that obviously by inviting them to be a part of the table. Now, when we invite you to the table, oftentimes I've had to say this, my intent is to try to get you to the table. How you act when you get there is going to almost be solely up to you. But at the same time, there is a necessity for preparation. And I think that's a lot that was already been said. How you prepare. And again, I keep going back to capacity again, because when COVID hit, the change that took place with a lot of business models, obviously one of the things that we began talking to companies about is to hone your business into an area which is where you're most able to really put your best foot forward. Oftentimes we have business who have the written capacity to do multiple things, but because you have the written capacity to do multiple things, is that in the area where you can actually do the greatest effort? If you are a company who can do multiple things, but maybe only one area is where your greatest line of strength is at, then develop that area, grow that. No one says not to reach out beyond that, but to grow in that area. Then be attentive. That is, show up where you're supposed to show up. Look for opportunities for networking. And again, because there are oftentimes small business only being the one person who opens and closes the door, may not be in multiple places, but now is the time to look at how I can branch out, how I can bring other people on board that can help me with that process, whether it's through the different agencies like MMBC and WBC, as well as the Black Business Association, that can help you, kind of with your marketing piece, how you can best put your best foot forward. So again, networking. Companies like to do business with people they're familiar with. And because they like to do business they're familiar with, then you have to make yourself familiar to other companies. Show up at the pre-bid meetings, even if it's not your day to bid, but show up so that you can get your information out, get your marketing tools out, have your capability statements ready, those things that you can talk about, who you are and what you're best able to do, so that when you do have your opportunity at that bid, not only are you prepared, but other people are aware of you, because I remember seeing you at that last meeting and what you brought to the table. So when you show up, be in the room, be in the space, let them see who you are, what you're able and capable of doing. But then again, make sure that what you're capable of doing, you can actually deliver.
Fantastic, fantastic. Ernest, I see you with your hand up, but since we don't have any questions, I'm gonna ask another question, unless Ernest gets a little long-winded. So
Yeah,
Ernest,
I won't be long-winded. I was just say the importance of research before you start the business. Too often we start businesses out of necessity. I make a good pie or whatever the case may be, or I'm gonna cast my net so wide so that I can catch something, which is what Joe is saying. But we have to do a better job of researching on the front end to see where the gaps are, where the opportunities are, and be able to build expertise in those spaces.
awesome, awesome, awesome. So listen, last question, and I'm gonna give you guys about 20 seconds before I cut you off. So, and the question is, what kind of initiatives would you like to see here in Memphis that could help support the Black business community? What do we need more of, or what is completely missing from the Black business ecosystem, and how could Memphis really support and get behind Black businesses to level up?
So
Starting with you, Giselle.
what I was going to say, I think that there, what is missing is that there are a lot of services that are offered. So I think there are things that we offer here at MMBC. There's things that the Women's Business Center offers, the things that BBA offers. And I think our organizations, many of them have evolved over time. And maybe what people thought MMBC did 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago is not what we do today. And what people may have thought that BBA does, I know, especially since Ernest has been there, they're doing a whole lot of new and different things. And so I think a way for people to really understand all of the resources, we have a wealth of resources in this community, and to really understand them before someone comes up and try to create something new, to really understand what's out there so that gaps can truly be filled, and people can truly be served. So since I brought that up, I'll just say that the MMBC is an umbrella organization. So we have the MMBC. We also have the Tennessee Minority Business Development Agency Business Center, which serves minority businesses all across the entire state of Tennessee. We have a training and development arm that has no members. People always say, well, you don't have to be a member of MMBC. No, you don't. MMBC has a training organization that has no members. And so that training is open to any business, minority or woman-owned business here in the city. And in some instances, non-minority and women-owned businesses. So I think just to really understand all that we all do. Now, what that looks like, Larry, maybe it's a ecosystem guide where if people are looking to try to see what services are offered, they take a look at that. There could be some things that we offer, and there could be things that someone needs. Venetia over at the Women's Business Center could have the remainder of what they need, or what Ernest has.
All right. All right. Ernest?
What's missing? I think the learning curve is real. As Joe said, get people to the table, but it's how they behave when they're at the table. Well, if they've never been to the table, they may not behave in the way that positions them, for success. And so that education gap can be solved with a back office, a shared service type of system where companies can subscribe to this service as opposed to trying to figure out all these different roles. And so I think if we create a shared services where companies can subscribe to take some of the relief off of them knowing contracting, knowing accounting, knowing marketing, but have them subscribe so that they can hire those services and be able to learn alongside experts. I think that will be one way, to accelerate success.
Man, this is so beautiful and so rich in information. So I can't stop it, even though we've gone over already 1 minute. So Venetia, Dr. Mitchell, could you give us something quick that we need that is missing, and what infrastructure things we could add?
Yes, I love both of the suggestions. Definitely like the ecosystem mapping and then the programming that Ernest mentioned. And I often think like some VC, some venture capital for Black people that comes with like a venture capital mentor. You know, I look at the Shark Tank model, right? When they invest money, they're usually quite engaged in supporting those businesses as well. So I'm like some deep pockets opening up with money and real tactical information for these businesses, I think would be amazing, an amazing addition to our ecosystem, earmarked for Black businesses.
Fantastic. Joe?
In a nutshell, I think what we've already pointed out is there, just as another little shameless plug, the Intergovernment Consortium group here in the city of Memphis that makes up all the different DEI, those who work in that area, more specifically in our city government all around, talk very succinctly about these issues and concern. I don't think there's anything that we need to go outside our market for or our panelists for. Between MMBC and the other different organizations that are here today have as much as those things that can help with that learning curve. However, I think as the more we talk about it, the more we put it out there, the better emphasis those will be able to see. And guess what? Every win that we have amongst ourselves, we ought to be able to talk about it. I love hearing about what's going on in MMBC and BBA in those areas, and I want to talk it up. And the more we talk up that type of thing, the more we'll be able to help each other to get others across that finish line.
Fantastic. Eric, you got to come back to the screen. But listen, we want to thank Joselle Booker of MMBC, Ernest Strickland of the BBA, the Black Business Association, Dr. Venetia Mitchell of the Women's Business Center, as well as Women's Business Center South, and as well as Joe Claiborne, Senior Manager of Business Diversity at the Memphis International Airport. So Eric, I'm gonna shut up and let you take us out.
Well, thank you all. Larry, we could have had this conversation for a couple more hours. You did an excellent job. Panelists, each of you, thank you so much. Each one of you answered my call and came through. I appreciate it. This conversation was even richer than I expected it to be. And I guess I should have had even higher expectations because I knew who I was asking to participate. So thank each of you. Thank you for enriching this ecosystem. Thank everybody who participated. I encourage everybody to take that one thing that you heard and implement it. And if you've done it all, if you're absolutely done it all, then tell somebody else that wasn't able to participate what that one thing they should do is, because we definitely had a wealth of knowledge here in the panelists. So again, on behalf of the Greater Memphis Chamber, thank each and every one of you who participated, and as well as the panelists for being here. Thank you for giving us 5 extra minutes of your time. And I hope to be a resource to each and every one of you here and anybody that is an attendee as well. Have a great day and go be great in this business community.
Fantastic.